planning an event can be a pain in the butt. Especially when you got a date picked out and you think you have time. You don't. Not really. Not without a plan. Yeah, I know. I only got 6 months left. Don't kill me. But that's exactly why I'm going to show you how to plan it right, starting right now. In 2009, I planned my entire wedding in 3 months. You know, no timeline, no plan, just panic. Okay? But we're going to talk about timelines, whether you like it or not. Ready? Let's go. Welcome back to the redo. If you watched the last few episodes, you know the vision is locked in. The dress is in production. And I'm starting to hunt for vendors on St. Croix. Okay? What I didn't show you is what happened behind the scenes this week. Venues got quiet on me. They didn't answer back. And sometimes that actually happens. And it's not your fault. Don't ever think of it as your fault if that ever happens to you. The timeline is very important because just understand this. Hotels, resorts, all of these venues, they already have things scheduled. And then when you call them or email them and say, hey, I want this date, they have to try to figure out how to fit it. But when you don't have a timeline or a schedule, you could say, it just goes into chaos. You know that? Every wedding planning guide tells you some version that it takes about 12 months or maybe a little bit more to plan this event. Now, let's break it down. 11 to 12 months out, you just got engaged. You know, you're just feeling the being on cloud nine about it. You're trying to figure out the budget. You got to pick a date. You got to think about who's going to show up or who you want to show up to this thing. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then you want to know where you're going to have this. And then about 8 to 10 months out before the wedding happens, after you figure that part out, you want to do engagement photos, save the dates, you know, to make sure the venue is booked because you got to book the place before, you know, you got to do it. You got to also make sure that the photographer is locked in. All these things you have to ensure that is there so on the wedding day it actually happens. It's 6 to 8 months out now. The dress. Because you know, usually bridal salons take about 6 to 8 months for a dress that you fall in love with. And we spoke about how you're going to find that dress in the last episode. It takes about that time for the dress to arrive in time so you could do the fittings, so you could make sure everything is perfect, make sure it fits right, so, you know, you feel confident in that dress and feel absolutely beautiful and your best so that it's ready. You also have to think about the bridal party, you know, the make sure the color scheme works, the bridesmaids' dresses, the grooms and everything. You got to make sure that it is scheduled in time. The caterers, the band, the DJ, all that jazz. And then 4 to 6 months out, you got to make sure that the invitations go out. If you wait too long or push them up too early, you know, some people probably think, you know, I got to do this or do that. But you got to put it in the schedule so that they can plan to be there, you know, to celebrate you and your fiance. And 2 to 3 months out, you got to meet with your officiant, whoever is performing the ceremony. You got to make sure that hair and makeup, you know, you got to do the trials to make sure that it is exactly what you want and how you want to look like on your wedding day. All of that. You also have to make sure the marriage license is done. All of these things is part of the timeline planning. And then on the last month, you have your final fittings. The seating chart is set. The vendor has been paid so that they can show up. You know, this sounds like chaos. You know, when I speak about it, you're like, what am I going to do? Don't panic. Because a schedule like this allows you to make sure that everything is done in a timely manner. I didn't have that opportunity. I had to do it in 3 months. Let me tell you my story in this one. In 2009, I didn't have 12 months. Remember I mentioned that? I only had 3. So I had to basically do it in panic mode, and I didn't get the venue I wanted, the dress I wanted, or anything that I wanted. I just took what was left. On an island, I told you, the salon only had 2 dresses that actually fit me. Yeah. And then I had to be in a venue I hated for my reception. Man, I hated that. And what that has taught me is that you got to have a schedule. You got to make sure that you don't pile everything on one plate and try to sift through and try to inhale this really, really quickly. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some brides out there, people out there who are so organized, they can plan an event like that. It doesn't take them long. But you don't have to go through that. If you need help, build a timeline. I just gave you that. Let's look it over just one more time, because I think I went through it a little bit fast. So 8 to 12 months out, you just got engaged. You're thinking about how much you're going to spend, picking a date, starting the guest list to make sure that the ones you want there are going to be there, and start looking at venues. All right, 8 to 10 months out, you get the photos done for the engagement. You do the save the dates. You got to send those out so people will be aware that this is going to happen, okay? And the venue is booked. It is key to book these things that far in advance so they have it on their schedule. So if somebody says, I want the same date, they say, I'm unavailable for that. Your photographer, any of those are booked solid. Here's another thing, 6 to 8, 12 months, the dress. Remember, refer back to episode 3 on how to find it. 4 to 6 months out, make sure your invitations are done and they're the way you want it, and send them out. So that people who have to save the dates, they'll be like, I got the invitation, put it on the schedule. 2 to 3 months, make sure you meet with the glam squad, I should say, to ensure that you look your best on that day. And then on the last month, you just make sure you just dot the I's, cross the T's, final fittings, the seating chart, make sure everything is ready there. And then on the day, you don't have to worry about it. Okay. I reached out to venues on St. Croix and I didn't hear back. That's not St. Croix failing me. That is part of how it works. They have schedules. They are a business. They need to keep moving. Okay? So I just have to work against the math. And the math stays as it does. Okay? So I'm not going to panic. I'm just going to take it one day at a time. Yes, 6 months. A wedding could be done in 6 months. So I'm just going to take it one day at a time. And every episode, we're going to walk through it. Now, here is your homework. Okay? Here is your homework. I want you to write down your timeline, whatever the date is. 12 months or more, go at a comfortable pace. Pick your venues, pick your vendors, pick your dates. Make sure that is done. 6 months out, I want you to flex, just be flexible. Don't panic, okay? Make sure you narrow everything down to the one venue that you want or whatever vendor you have. Now remember, negotiating power. That is your power. Not theirs, your power. Make sure you get what you want. Okay? Refer back to episode 3. It talks about getting the venue. 3 months or less. Make sure your non-negotiables stick. Go back to episode 3. Make sure that the dress fits your location. Episode 3 again. And make sure everything else is in the right order. They move fast, they're loose around, don't panic, okay? There is no wrong timeline. Everybody planned things in different ways. So, I'm not going to do this in 6 months. I'm just going to work with them. Work with their schedule. Work with them, which means constant chatter. That's what I'm going to do, and you're going to follow me along with it. So, your homework again, figure out how many months you actually have and circle your non-negotiables. Make sure they're there so you don't negotiate on what you want. We talked about that, okay? And then everything else can flex around you. You are the bride. You are the one who is creating this day. You and your fiance. It's about the both of you celebrating a love and telling the whole world, whatever circle that is, that this day is about the two of you. All right. Join me in the next episode. See you in episode 5.